Then, if possible, we should try to create, to make those young people to learn creative thinking and actually critical thinking. And because things change, but they should be able to assess validity, truth of things and make right decisions. It's in a sense how the mathematics or logic interacts with the reality. It needs a middleman that is human.
Welcome yet to another exciting iteration of our little projects called Two Poles Not So Far Apart. Today we have two exciting news about where we are and who we meet. So we're actually in a beautiful, beautiful city of Wrocław. We had our walk with our coffee today and by the river. And we've actually walked to this beautiful building, a newly renewed building, nearly 100 years old, of the of the Wrocław University of Science and Technology. Welcome. I have the pleasure to welcome our guest, Krzysztof Bogdan. And Krzysztof, I'll let you introduce yourself. I think that's going to be the best. Can you tell us about yourself, what you do, what your passions are, what you're interested in?
Okay, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm a mathematician, a professor of mathematics. I also happen to be a dean. I just started my term, which I never planned. So I'm the dean of the Faculty of Pure and Applied Mathematics at this university, and have to take care about many things, in particular about the curricula of students, which is maybe one of the topics for today. I'm doing stochastic processes, Markov processes in particular. This is a topic on the intersection of probability analysis, in particular harmonic analysis, semi-group theory. It describes evolutionary phenomena.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I think evolution, and actually people or a human being is at the center of our podcast, has been the center of our podcast all the time, because in the end, that's what creates value, and that's what creates academia and business as well. Thanks for having us here once again. I guess when we thought about the actual topics or the things that we could talk about, we always say in our podcast that I guess geography is a main topic. It's sort of a root of how we sort of created all of our conversations. We come from Poland. We're actually in Poland right now. It's actually three Poles right now in one room as well, and very close together, and actually with some vast international experience as well. And I know, Krzysztof, you've done some work abroad as well. So you did a bit of work in the States?
Yes, especially with my family and with my wife in particular. We visited Purdue University many times. We visited Stanford University and Washington University, actually. We started there. So that was a tremendous experience, something that probably shaped our life and thinking. And I very much value that experience. And then we returned back to Poland, and we tried to do our best here.
Oh, yeah.
So if I might add here, actually, we've known each other for a while. And actually, the first time we met was we got introduced by another friend of ours who was also from Wrocław. So I think I might have mentioned in one of the podcasts, actually, I studied here just across the street at the University of Wrocław. Studied mathematics, so this was like the Polytechnic and now the University of Science and Technology. But as it turns out, we're actually students at exactly the same time.
Really?
So like chronologically, we're just on the two sides of the same, it's called Platz Grunwaldzki. Okay. It's the Grunwaldzki Square. So I just talked with Krzysztof's wife, and it's like we're studying like math at pretty much the same years. We had the same kind of friends as well, but we never met in Wrocław. So after we both lived in Indiana, Krzysztof and Gosia were at Purdue University. I was at Indiana University. That's where I actually met over 20 years ago. I think this
incredible.
was like late 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
This is incredible story, and we find out as we meet with people throughout it that either a small decision or sometimes some really funny and squiggly ways are getting us together around the world. In the most unexpected circumstances sometimes. But yeah, here we are here.
So actually, on that's if I can jump on that, like, how did you go to the States the first time? If you don't mind saying, kind of like how your path led you to those different institutions or great institutions in the States, and then kind of back to Poland.
So in a sense, that was the topic, the research topic that we started then in the late 90s, and that was about evolutionary phenomena understood like transfer of heat and in the presence of jumps and such things. And there was a conference in Berkeley, and then after that I got an invitation from Krzysztof Bogdan, who is a professor at Washington University in Seattle. And then we visited at the beginning of 2000. My wife simultaneously got a scholarship from the Foundation for Polish Science, and she started doing some bioinformatics, I would say, or biostatistics with Elizabeth Thompson, Professor Elizabeth Thompson from there. And that was really the beginning of the research path of hers in this direction, and mine also. It was kind of important. I didn't change very much my research, but my wife really modified her research in this because of that scholarship. And then we went after half a year to Purdue, to Lafayette, to West Lafayette, to be precise, to Indiana. We enjoyed our time there very much because that's a very nice place for a family with 3 kids. And after almost 2 years at Purdue, we returned to Poland, and then we visited regularly for a couple of months. This basically finished in about the year 2010. And then we also visited shortly Stanford, as I mentioned, and that was basically the end of longer stays abroad, because, things require more, influence, or rather participation from our side.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So again, it's interesting to hear again that an opportunity changes in the context of your wife's career. That an opportunity actually changes your field of study or the actual path that you have further on. We've been proven that one situation in life or one fact can actually do a lot, and we've had that before in our conversations as well, quite a lot.
That's a lot of what happens in our life is random. We know that.
Yeah. Sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't. Yes, this randomness, it's a wonderful thing on one hand, but on the other hand, as humans, I think, and I'm not trying to change the topic here really, but we're not good with randomness as humans. Like, it's like we just had elections in US, and people are not very, if polling says something one way by a fraction of a percent, people think this is certain. But people forget that this is polling, this is a sample, this is, and there are many problems that might arise with the number that we actually get. Maybe we'll get back to that.
We will.
Errors up to 3% seem to be completely okay, right?
Yeah, but as humans,
with polls.
we can't, we just, it's like 49 to 48%. Okay, somebody is, winning because it's 49. Not unless you have like census, yes.
Krzysztof, you've mentioned students, and we've talked about it earlier in our conversations as well, that students are our future. And your field of study and research is connected with with applied mathematics, with a very traditional, somebody could say a very traditional area of science. And how do you prepare students, with interest in such an area? We have some, we have some notes behind this which are just showing us how the world can be, we use the word described and how to put it in the world. How do we prepare students nowadays to, all the technology, all of the fast-moving goods, fast-moving sort of a technology and the situation around the world, and making them, make their knowledge fit for purpose, I guess, and ready for all of that things outside.
I think it's an open question, and we'll stay open, but let me talk about maybe 2 or 3 things.
Absolutely.
There are some basic things which are even more important than, I don't know, pyramids or pieces of art. So these are some achievements in mathematics, like, I don't know, differential calculus, linear algebra, probability, and they are the base for education. Then, if possible, we should try to to make those young people to learn creative thinking and actually critical thinking. And because things change, but they should be able to assess validity, truth of things, and make right decisions. Usually you don't have the certainty for making decisions, but you should have some tools. People are not good with randomness. One reason is, I believe, that probability is always about many scenarios, and we are not very good in controlling many scenarios. 2 or 3 is probably okay, but 10 or 10,000, it's too much. But we have a language now to describe that. And with some help of software, we can use this language to control reality. So the other thing is they should have some tools, some skills, like computer skills. And in particular, in my faculty, we put a lot of emphasis on the computer skills. So in a sense, this faculty is strong in probability, statistics, including and computing, as far as they are needed for this task.
Okay. And this is the basis, when you think about it, all of those elements are the basis to any decisions that we make. And you mentioned scenarios, which in the business world right now is probably one of the most used words right now that you can do, scenario planning, or being able to actually compute a number of scenarios and make very quick decisions on the go almost. It's something that business really is looking forward now, and there's some very expensive tools in like ERP systems and other tools that we're actually paying a lot of money to get the all the possibilities, or maybe not all of them, but actually choose a number of scenarios which are adequate to the decision we try to do on the go right now. So I guess it's not. I mean, there was a bit of a. I think my question had a bit of a hypothesis in it, but I don't think it's actually right. It's probably, again, not that far away from. So the real world is actually based on all of those decisions and all of those backgrounds that you made.
If I can interrupt, probably mathematics is now in the position to help more in predicting or controlling those scenarios than it was before. But of course, there's a gradual progress. And one of my colleagues at this faculty, Professor Krzysztof actually, I've read one of his more popular books, and he proposes the following procedure. Consider all the reasonable scenarios and then make decisions. The reasonable is difficult, and all the reasonable is a certain restriction, right? In probability, quite often we have models which are well described, and then the scenarios are well understood, but sometimes they are quite complicated. So I'm happy the industry is getting there as well, and may need interaction with us, and we may need inspiration.
Absolutely. And
if I may, just one thing here. So you mentioned this word reasonable scenarios, and this reasonable, this is something to what you said earlier, teaching students like critical thinking and so on. So this definition of reasonable is very tricky, yes, because what's reasonable for Kamil, for you, for me might be different, yes, and for people also who maybe are on the fringes of thinking about certain situations, reasonable might be completely not intersecting even what we think is reasonable. So in science, in mathematics, is there a more succinct or kind of like a definition of reasonable? That you mentioned the book. How did Professor Krzysztof define reasonable?
Frankly, I don't think it's it's convincing enough. But I understand the importance of this notion. Of course, in mathematics, we can consider all the scenarios. But that in practice it may be not practical, not possible, and very difficult. And then you consider scenarios, you try to protect yourself against scenarios which are very unlikely, and then you lose time or opportunities, whatever. So, the human condition allows us to somehow interact directly with the reality, assess possibility or impossibility of certain scenarios, and we should use that. In the real life. In mathematics, I can spend 10 years solving a problem, considering all the scenarios, because in a sense that's my construction, right? But in reality, usually we don't have time, and the reasonable thing is important. It's in a sense how the mathematics or logic interacts with the reality. It needs a middleman that is human. I believe the systems of artificial intelligence that maybe we will discuss today as well, they lack this part.
Right.
They need some feedback, or rather feed from the humans to say what is reasonable, what is right, what is left, what it means to be in the same room, and so on.
Like a context and contextualize the actual information. However, I have a slightly controversial opinion around that, because when we talk, and I work in supply chain, and supply chain is technology, is I think very much science based as well, and fact based, and there are areas in the business where I actually think showing some of those unreasonable scenarios would actually make a really good point. Like if we think marketing is all about numbers now. It's all about data. It's all about analysis. It's all about looking at elements of, I don't know, a internet commercial or something which is triggering a certain action from consumers. And sometimes you might think it's completely unreasonable to do things like that. But I think if a prepared unreasonable scenario could be actually showed and then contextualized through people, it might actually trigger some unconventional thinking and some unconventional ideas which are working pretty well. And there's lots of examples when a commercial that normally wouldn't work is picking up, and it's really good. There's one called Meerkat. There's a insurance company in the United Kingdom actually, so it might not be known to everyone around, which is just using a word. We've probably seen, like, it's called Compare the Market, and they've used a meerkat. And like a spelling mistake, saying we got and have a meerkat talking about, look, we have a website when we compare our meerkats, and you're making the spelling mistake. A lot of people looking for insurance and wanting to compare the market come to our website and then for land there. And if you think about it, it's completely, it's a joke. It's something that somebody came out of. But now it's an industry. It's like, it has 5 different iterations. There's website, and for 10 or 15 years, it became a small sort of an industry and a thing around there. So I think bridging the gaps, and this is something that would be good to talk about as well, knowing your opinion about it, is sometimes actually showing something outside of the box as well. And I think some of the
humanity is a strange thing because we are still developing. There is no stationarity in the development of humanity. So, and we are very hungry for new ideas, for information. That's funny because somehow probably that's why we made such a progress.
Right.
We are just curious for information, for new stuff, and that suggests that something new, even if unreasonable, may catch up.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the commercial just reminded me, there was this famous Super Bowl commercial. So in the States, Super Bowl is kind of the biggest one-day event. Kind of, this is the American football game.
The most expensive commercial time on air, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it is. So there was this one, I don't even remember what they were advertising, but certain expressions from the commercial actually went into like vernacular of people. So there was commercial about cowboys herding cats. not cows, but cats, talking about how hard it is that, you get scratches, you have to remove the fur from your, clothes, and, so, and this was like a hit. And it was, again, something that, like, I don't know the meerkat thing. Of course, I will. After this recording, I'll have to check it. Yes.
Check it out. If you like the topics discussed on this podcast and you would like to hear some more, please do not forget to subscribe and push the like and the bell button.
Yes, we'll have more exciting guests, and the topics that we'll discuss will cover what we usually cover: business and academia and the intersection of them.
So please do subscribe and push the like.
So we're talking about training the new generation. So any other ideas? So you mentioned some ideas already about, the basics, the computing, and then this kind of critical thinking. Anything like practically how you are implementing it? Especially I'm interested in your ideas about critical thinking. How do you teach students critical thinking?
And so let's talk about the easier stuff first.
Okay, okay. That's
So
fine.
the students here at this faculty, and we have plenty of students now, the faculty has about 700 students of mathematics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And about 25 PhD students. So we teach them programming in Python, in R, and in C. That may be elective, I don't know, for some students, and some other languages, but the main two are Python and R, and this is suited especially, R is for statistics and Python is for the artificial intelligence as far as I understand. So they learn to do projects on time, so that's good. So they are able to deliver on time perfect or not so perfect solutions, and that's good because that's how they function later on in life, right? About critical thinking, there should be a place for critical thinking in our classical math courses, but then they tend to be loaded with information, which is very important, obviously, right?
Yeah,
and to be able to critically analyze information, you first need to have the language, with some basic knowledge, and then to interact and discuss, and that takes a lot of time, right? So I think we could do better in this respect. We have seminars, of course, especially research seminars, and then people see that somebody makes mistakes, they have opinions, makes choices about the research direction. There are plenty of choices. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the scenarios that we can also progress our research are unlimited, right? There are too few people to really do all of that. So then they see this critical component. But otherwise, I don't have that much experience. I would like to have something like a discussion club. We have maybe each month we have somebody from the faculty presenting to the students what they are doing. We had a few meetings about artificial intelligence or about particular topics like ergodic theory and so on. Maybe this is helpful. Maybe important thing is that students they are organizing certain events like conferences.
Okay.
This is like interacting to reality with some constraints, restrictions, and maybe when you need to interact with some limits, then the critical thinking forms.
That's when it's for, and when you have real limitations or real life problems as well, yes. So you go outside of a lab a little bit as well, yes.
Yeah, because in mathematics you can think about anything, you can invent notation and so on, and if nobody is controlling you, this is not good. You want this what you are doing to be kind of art or maybe a profession rather, right? So you need limitations. I believe our critical thinking, the human critical thinking, were formed because, well, if you make a mistake in a jungle, you are dead, right?
You are.
Yes.
So this is where the notion of truth must have emerged. If you have too crazy an idea about how to, I don't know, chase an animal, then you probably are at a loss.
Yes. That might be right.
These are those unreasonable paths, that you take that
Eliminate.
You still have to be reasonable about choosing them and actually create the area for it as well. And actually, this is a good point as well. We talk a lot about like safe space for. I call it failure. Jarek doesn't like this word. He always says like, "Do you really call it a failure? Is it a learning? Is it a path as well?" So such a such panels, like discussion panels, or maybe such a projects like organizing conference, is creating a bit of a safer space, I guess, for people to make those mistakes, I guess.
Yeah. We had this conference that the students organized. That's, I believe, the biggest mathematical conference for students in Poland that our students organize. And they do it themselves with some help from our administration and faculty, and some financial help a little bit as well. And so they need to actually plan, perform, organize. It's really a good place for making small mistakes. Making mistakes is important.
I have a history from. I have an example from my life. When I was a student, we've organized a conference in commodity science area, so quality management, and my very close friend, actually, he was responsible for making a poster and a bit of marketing, and we made a spelling mistake in our own department name, and when we only show it at the beginning of at the actual day of the conference, and I remember just the morale just went completely down because there were so many people. It was such a successful event, but in the end, that one word over there was missing. So I guess there needs to be. It's good to have some control sometimes. It helps.
That's how the Meerkat campaign started, because of
It
your
might have
spelling.
absolutely might have started like that. Yes.
Or Google.
Or Google,
Google,
yes.
yeah.
So we should not be afraid of mistakes, because otherwise we don't do anything.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's a certain way to not make mistakes, not do anything, but it's not a